Good afternoon, folks. We are live once again. Let me get everything switched over and we will jump right into today's drawing stream. All right, let me turn on BGM. Let me know if I'm coming in loud and clear. I had to adjust my sound settings slightly yesterday for D&D session, and hopefully everything is more or less the same as it usually is here. I see, hey, Red Dragon's here. What's up, Red Dragon? Equestrian's also here. How's it going? Welcome to the stream, folks. Also, let me know if I need to adjust the BGM. In the past, it's been kind of soft. Hopefully you can hear it just in the background. We are running through the regular BGM playlist, which will include some tracks from the latest album that just came out last week. So you might hear some Sasak songs mixed in a little bit. Alright, Equestrian and Red Dragon, give me a thumbs up on sound. Very good. Alright. So how are you all doing today on this Wednesday? Oh, what day is it? Yeah, it's the middle of the week. It's tomorrow for Red Dragon, but for those of us not in the future time zone, it's been a busy week. Busy but productive. I can't really complain. Our Dragon says Thursday for me. Doing okay, just arting myself. Oh, good. Hopefully your drawing is going well. I know you don't post a lot of the stuff that you work on. I know you've posted sprite stuff, but feel free to share the things you're working on with the rest of the community in the Discord. And a question says it's 3 p.m. Let me see something here. I don't keep close tabs on all of the people in the community Discord, but I know Equestrian, you hang out here somewhat frequently. I will drop the Discord link if you don't have it already. I had to change the command. I was telling folks like a couple streams ago. I had to change the command because we've had a problem with spammers. And spammers just assume that there's a standard Discord command. They grab it, they join, and they start spamming people in the actual Discord channel. And that sucks. But I can't remember if you were here last time I shared the link. So I'll drop it here. Feel so compelled to hang out with the community. Feel free. All right, so what are we doing today? I had posted on Twitter when we went live that I wanted to do sort of a project catch-up stream today, which really all of my drawing streams are catch-up, since a lot of times the majority of my work that I get done is when I'm doing these. But I want to start with the concept stuff that we've been working on for the Halloween album release. And from there, I'm going to probably jump to one of our projects we haven't touched in a while. Red Dragon says, yeah, we had a bot scammer on the last Elden Ring stream. Yeah, that person actually interacted for a while, though, before, like, pushing and saying, hey, can I have your Discord link? Can I have your Discord link? At that point, it seemed pretty suspect, so I said, no. And if you don't knock it off, I will just ban you directly. I could have just dropped the ban hammer, but the person just left after that. But that'll happen. Our Dragon says also just doing a Plops onesie from Avatar. Oh, nice. Did you get the reference sheet for your Avatar finished? I know it's been in progress, but are you almost done with it? The question asks, why do you ask for the Discord link just to join? I wouldn't ask only if I wanted to. Well, so what people have been doing, and Red Dragon has seen this too, what people have been doing normally is they'll join a stream and without chatting or interacting with the community at all or anything, they'll just use like exclamation point Discord because that's most of the what people will set as their standard command, and it'll bring up a link to their server. The spammer will follow the link, join the server, and then start just either spamming in the main channel or start spamming individual community members in the Discord saying like, "Hey, I'm an artist. Would you like to hire me?" Or, follow this link for whatever, and just start doing that within the Discord itself. And so this person who joined last time, because I changed my command, it's no longer exclamation point Discord. The person probably tried to do that and it didn't work. And so rather than figure it out, the person was asking me and said, "Hey, can I join your Discord community?" Just kind of after maybe one or two really superficial chats. So immediately it was kind of suspicious, but I like to give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes, most of the time. But I know a lot of my streaming peers have seen something kind of similar, so you'll probably see a little bit more lockdown of Discord stuff just to kind of cut down on that, because the last thing I want is for all of you folks that are just hanging out to be getting spam stuff from people. That's no good. Red Dragon says, not yet, about another week. I do feel bad, but I keep poking Pwops. I know they're busy, but I'm sure you'll get there. Usually, Pwops is working on several things at once, so as long as you've established your time frame, you don't have to bug them constantly, but as long as you just keep in communication, it should be good. That's why when I've hired Pwops to work on stuff, I've kind of laid out my timeline for ultimately when I'm going to need something done, so that we can kind of work towards that, and like the scheduling is not a surprise. And Dragon says, yeah, and they're saying they do art too in chat. Yeah, so what happened with that particular scammer last week was when I said I wasn't going to give out the Discord just to any rando person, this person that joined said, okay, well, I do art commissions and assets and whatnot, and did their whole pitch in the stream. And I said, that's against the rules. You can't do that. You can't do promo stuff in the stream. Just like I couldn't go to Wazzy's stream or Matt's stream or Ramen's stream and say, hey, by the way, I don't really do commissions, but if I said, hey, you should check out my music, it's free and whatever, even though, I'm sure they wouldn't get mad at me, but it's considered poor etiquette to solicit or advertise in someone else's chat. That's kind of a global rule on Twitch here. Same thing, like if one streamer went into another streamer's chat and said, hey, you should stop by my stream and check me out or whatever. You don't want to do that. That's considered pretty impolite. Exactly, just like Equestrian's saying. I am pretty selective about who I choose to work with for commission stuff. And usually I'll do enough research on a person if I don't know them, or if it's a mutual friend of a friend. That's usually what I go for. That way, the person I know can kind of vouch for said commissioner. Like, oh, so and so is legit. And they're either an artist peer, someone I know. They're trustworthy. And sometimes I've reached out to people I don't know, but usually via Twitter DMs just to kind of talk. But yeah, you run the risk of running into someone who might be not on the up and up. So what we're doing here, kind of like we did on one of the recent streams, last drawing stream in fact, I am sketching out some really simple pose primaries for the characters to potentially use in the Halloween release. What I want to do is I want to sketch out, at least to start for the stream today, I want to do a sketch for one of the characters here because I haven't completed one on stream yet. And I was thinking a bit before we jumped on, and I think I want to do one of the heavier Legion units, specifically the one that we talked about that would be the shield holder, like the defensive line type. And I was thinking about just taking a look at some of the poses and trying to see if I wanted to tweak any of the ones we have. And then I just realized there was one over here I was going to use, and I forgot about it. Red Dragon says, same here. That's why I asked you about Pwups, and I've seen their art before. Yeah, the tricky thing is, especially if you're a content creator, like when I was just starting out, oh man, like 3 years ago now, doing VTubing, I didn't know anybody. Like I didn't have a content creator social network at all. And so I did my initial modeling and rigging commission from someone on Fiverr, not somebody I knew. And it wasn't until I kind of started talking to people that I did some networking. Some of my assets were done by an actual company. I went onto Twitter and did some research on a company called Ubu Media, which is a funny name. And they're pretty well known out in the VTuber scene. They work with like the big YouTubers or VTubers that are out there. A lot of the indies and people with way more of a following than me. But they were open on their commissions for assets. So I had them make my logo, which you can't see it on my stream now, but it's the stuff that's on my albums, the Raku BPM logo. And they made the 3 thumbnails I use for the different types of main streaming that I do. So when I post on Twitter or on the YouTube thumbnails for like a gaming stream, drawing stream, or like a beatbox jam stream, those assets were made by an artist I commissioned through that actual company. They did a good job. I've been thinking about potentially updating my thumbnails or adding some new ones, but it's not super high on my priority list. And then from there, like especially after I met Wazzy, I got to make some other contacts through her. Obviously, I've worked with Pwups a few times. I am working with another artist for Halloween that I had not met before or talked to before, that I met through Froggy. That's one of his mutuals. And so a lot of it's just kind of getting your foot in the door and then talking to people. Okay. So, I actually like this one. I don't know if I'm going to keep the spear. But I think we can adapt this one into a more fleshed out sketch. And then we can go from there. So let me paste this into a new layer and I'm going to resize it up. Hey, first time chat from Wolf Pizza 55. What's up, Wolf Pizza 55? How are you doing today? Welcome to the drawing stream. Hope you are having a good day. Oh, why it did that. I just want a regular layer. We are doing some concept work for an upcoming music release of mine. And we're trying to develop some concepts into characters that are going to be part of the art for the project. Technically, it's going to be part of the video, not like album art. So feel free to come hang out and vibe. Question says, so it's really common for any streamer that just started. For me, I recently was doing streams. I'm only a gamer and a War Thunder veteran, not truly an artist. But I came across some people I don't know and wanted to join Discord. I don't have Discord servers on my end and only join their servers. Oh, I see. I think you mentioned streaming before a question, but it's been a while. In the Discord channel, there is a media share spot, so you can post in there when you're live. I don't have a bot that does it. I should probably get Sarlad to help me set that up. But if you want to post the stuff in media share for your streams to let people know if they want to check it out, you can do that there. That's allowed. It's cool. And Wolf Pizza says I'm good. Good. I was just telling the chat earlier that it's been a busy week, but I am looking forward to the weekend. It's been busy but productive. It's one thing if it's been busy and not productive, but at the Earth job, a lot's been going on. At least I've been getting things done for once. Hey, Valiant's here. How's it going, Valiant? Welcome to the stream. Red Dragon asks, Sarlad knows about bots. Yes, he does. One of the things that he helped me set up in my Discord is the thing that tells you all when I'm live on Twitch. It's StreamCord. He showed me how to set it up, but I was able to figure it out once he did that. If you want to do that for yours, Red Dragon, I would hit up Sarlad and just see if he can point you to the tutorial that I used. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to flesh out this rough sketch here, and I'm going to paste in the actual character I want to use. Here we go. We're going to copy from this sketch layer. We had all the heads. That way we can put it on reference on the layer we're doing. I know my layer hierarchy looks really bad. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, a lot of the basics of streaming is just trial and error. There's no set manual, at least not for free, that explains how to do things. Whether you're a regular IRL like gaming streamer, artist, or even an aspiring VTuber, all of us just kind of winged it and figured it out. I will merge you down. Not all layers. Ugh. Actually, this faction is going to be facing the opposite direction. So rather than just draw one perspective facing the left, I'm actually going to get some practice trying to draw the opposite direction too. And for the head sketches, that will make a difference. Since we're going to take a lot of those ideas and try and put them together to sketch out the actual main primary here. Wolf Pizza asks, do you like anime? I'm assuming you're asking me, but also for the rest of chat, folks can chime in as well. I do. I don't get as much time to watch it these days. Back when I was in Earth School, I used to watch anime a lot more. So a lot of the stuff I've seen is older, like from the 2000s-ish. But occasionally I'll watch stuff. I was just telling someone recently, a coworker of mine came up in discussion. I was talking about JoJo, and said person never heard of JoJo before. That's one of my favorite franchises, but I am not caught up on JoJo due to the same time constraints. I used to read a lot more manga, actually. My favorite manga is Berserk, since I'm sure someone would have asked at some point. I've stated that on stream in the past. I recently found a way to catch up on all of the newer Berserk stuff that happened since the author unfortunately died a couple years ago, year and a half ago. So it is still running, but I was collecting the big ultimate mega tomes that they were doing for Berserk, and I think it's going to be a little while before they have enough chapters before they can release another one in English. On the topic of community stuff, question said, just want to learn to interact with people more actively, but still too shy to talk to anyone. At least I'm gaining confidence slowly while doing streams certain times. I hear that. You just have to kind of start small. You know, find a community or streamers community that is chill and easy to kind of interact with. The folks here on my streams, which come over from Wazi on the Toxicure Grand Empire, most of them came from her, and they're all really chill people. So you can expect the folks that hang out here to be pretty cool. Okay, the helmet. This helmet's going to be interesting since it's kind of supposed to be very rough and rocky in shape. Kind of want to go for like stone armor. Oh balls, I'm on the wrong layer, aren't I? Indeed. Well, wouldn't be a drawing stream if I didn't do that at least once. That's fine. At least it's only there. I don't want to be on the same layer as all the sketch stuff. We're trying to flesh it out a little bit more. But what I was saying was trying to create like a rough rocky textures. Kind of what I'm going for. And I want to incorporate the kind of ponytail like you'd see on Night Helms on here as well. So I'm going to try and mix some ideas together and then work on the rest of the armor. Question also said, sometimes my internet tends to disconnect in my live streams here and there. That is also something that I know from experience. Fortunately, things have been relatively stable recently, but it's always my paranoid fear that my network connection is going to fart out and just instantly kill the stream. It's happened a couple times, thankfully. Not super rampant. But recently I was having PC issues with stability, and so the bigger concern was that my PC was going to up and crash while I was midstream, which would be just as bad, if not worse. And Red Dragon says starting is always the hardest. Yeah, it's challenging in the beginning when you're just trying to get your footing, figure out what kind of content you want to do. And like I've said on stream before, if you want a little bit of a kind of a soapbox from my experience, the first most important thing to do when getting into streaming is stream something you like to do. Don't just like go for the most popular or most trendy thing. Stream a type of content, whether it's gaming, art, music, just chatting, whatnot, but make it something you primarily are interested in doing that's going to be fun. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy it, and it's going to become a job. The second thing I would recommend is just keep doing it consistently. I know, especially if you're a person just starting out and you have a job or other obligations, it's difficult to carve time out. Like I have a regular 9-to-5 job that I do 4 to 5 days a week, and then as soon as that's done on days I'm streaming, then I jump right on and come here. But the best way to establish a community and kind of grow a following over time is to be consistent so people can tune in. And that could be a bit of a challenge since obviously it takes a lot of time. But everything else besides that, when it comes to getting followers and whatnot, it's just luck. That's the other thing. Very rare for someone to just blow up and become the next large, high-profile streamer. You just have to get lucky. I don't consider myself a big streamer by any means, but the fact that I have a community and I'm doing all the stuff I'm doing now was just due to pure luck. But when I started streaming, my expectation was not that I was going to be the next, Kai Cenat or Moist Critical or like a really big scale content creator. I just wanted to create stuff I liked, and if it worked out, it did, and if it didn't, then I'd do something else. The question says, here in Alaska, internet sucks. Starlink is good with watching movies in high quality settings, but it gets slow for a moment. Oh, so it's kind of spotty. That's kind of challenging. And Red Dragon says, with my illness, it's hard. Yeah, a lot of the other factors that make it difficult to just stream all the time, I get. Everybody has that to some extent, whether it's job, family, illness, or what have you. But that's the case. You do it when you can, and that's really all you can hope for. All right, so this lad's gonna be a bit heavier built. Again, this character is supposed to be from the angelic faction, so My initial thought was adapting kind of like a heavy rock armor, since again it's like the kind of heavy defensive type unit that has like a big tower shield. So that's what I'm going to kind of start with here, and then see how we flesh out the details, because we do want to go for more like metallic, not necessarily medieval, but kind of more of like a Western armor style. But we also want to make it kind of gross and otherworldly because, again, angelic faction. I need to be kind of mindful of our perspective here. Red Dragon says, I'm surprised my illness hasn't kicked off during our streams. We should probably talk about what the plan is if that happens while we're streaming. I know in the past you had kind of like a family Discord that people could post in if you have an episode. But since I don't think that exists anymore, we should probably talk about just like a backup plan or something, just in case of emergencies. Realize I drew kind of stick like proportions for a character that's supposed to be relatively heavy. It's fine. Can work with that. You do want to kind of keep in mind like a rougher, rocky texture, which is why I'm going for kind of a more of an angular shape on the chest plate, or it's like a cuirass. It's more, yeah, it's kind of like a chest plate. Valiant asks, so what are these concepts for? Good question. We were talking about it a little bit towards the beginning of the stream. It's kind of like a recap, but I'll kind of explain a little bit, especially for folks who jumped in a little further into the stream. I'll zoom out a little bit. So I'm working on the next major music release that is scheduled to come out in October, and that's going to be for Halloween. And there's going to be a teaser going up for it maybe this weekend. I would like to put it up more than a month in advance for once. And so I've been working with the artist that I'm commissioning for that project. Now I know who it is. Same one from last year's album art. But the project itself is called, I've been going back and forth on the title. I got to do some title work later. But the name of the album is the Lightbane Temple. I have terrible handwriting. And for Lightbane Temple, the whole idea of the song list and all of the tracks are done for it. I'm actually early for once. All the tracks are done, but the whole story of the album, and again, these are instrumental BGM tracks, just like everything else we've done up till now. The story of the release is telling this rough kind of narrative of a tale of a conflict between two large factions that take place at this spot called the Lightbane Temple. The temple itself belongs to a sort of pagan old god Lovecraftian group that worships them. We talked about like a shamanistic or druidic faction, and they're called the Natural Order. They're the ones who own the temple. That's their site. The attacking group that's waging war against the Natural Order is sort of a celestial, heavenly type of group, and they're called the Etherean Legion. and they're meant to be very kind of biblically accurate, angel inspired, with kind of medievalish metallic armor contrasted against the natural order, which have a lot of like animal nature themes, plants. And so these concepts are going to be used in the video for the actual compilation of tracks when the project comes out. There are 14 in total tracks, and so I need to draw 7 characters from each faction. And what they'll do is when I eventually get all these fully inked and rendered and colored and whatnot, they're going to pop in during the compilation video, which is going to be demoing all the tracks. And I need to get a move on because haven't finished any from start to finish, but I have completed one of the character sketches. This one we're working on here is technically the second. And so I got to start really getting stuff done because we're pretty much middle of August. October will be here before I realize it. So I wanted to take some time on stream today to at least get another one of the sketches done. And then I've been working on it offline as well. I could show you guys the first one I did. It's not a secret or anything. And Equestrian asks, or says like orchestral songs but different. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Thanks for mentioning it. Style-wise, the Halloween projects tend to be a bit more experimental compared to some of the other stuff. If you get a chance to check out what I've released so far, either on YouTube or on streaming platforms like Spotify or Tidal, every Halloween it's a little bit different, but the focus tends to be a bit more kind of dark and, like I said, experimental and weird, but generally a mix of electronic elements and nothing really heavy. I haven't really found an effective way to do dubstep type stuff yet, with like aggressive drops and all that. They are still background music. But this year's project is going to sound very different because it's still primarily like electronic elements and again kind of more dark and ominous, but there's a lot more elements of, I want to say like kind of gospel-y, churchy type stuff, because one of the factions is meant to be angelic. They're not from literal heaven. The whole idea of heaven versus hell or whatnot, I think, is really laid out. I've mentioned that before. So for the setting for the story, it's not like forces of heaven versus earth or hell. It's nothing like that. It's just they come from a plane that's like ethereal and like celestial in nature. And so there's a lot of like organ, choir, and a lot of stuff in that faction's tracks. The other side, the natural order, to kind of contrast that, there's a bit more synth, and it doesn't sound night and day different, but the style kind of changes a little bit. There's a bit more of kind of a like a less gospel-y feel. It's just kind of different, but all of it's under the envelope of electronic-ish type music. And the way the tracks kind of play out, it's telling a rough story of things happening within this conflict from start to finish. You know, again, there's no words, so it's not telling you here's when a fight occurs, but you can kind of tell from the energy of the music that, oh, hey, this sounds like a battle theme. There's a battle going on. This is more of a mellow kind of ambient theme. And so the goal of the project is kind of work that into a loose narrative and then be able to see through the stuff I'm working on with my artist peer that I'm commissioning for this one. We're still working on the actual stuff for the video, the cover art for the album and / stuff for the video. And then there's this stuff that I'm working on here with the actual character concepts. So this one's a bit more of a heavy lift compared to some of the other ones I've done. Maybe not quite to the extent like Songs of the Spiral earlier this year that Whoopsie animated. It won't be that complex, but it'll definitely be more involved than last year's Halloween project. I'm really looking forward to showing you guys the stuff for Lightbane Temple. I think it's going to be really cool. Okay, I'm going to start roughing in the details on the shield, and then I'm going to have to come up with some ideas for what I want to do on the shield itself. Question says, stories written within the song. I have extreme imagination of what was happening, like the battle happened or the warning of the characters. Yeah, it's kind of like an overarching thing that goes, but hopefully it'll have just kind of a feel of progression. Like this is the start of the conflict. Here's where things are kind of gathering. Some things are happening in between, leading up to like a big battle involves all factions, and then the aftermath. I've never really done something that ambitious before, so again, we'll see. The very least, it should be an interesting listen. And eventually, I'm gonna have to think about what the next project after that's gonna be. That point, we'll be getting close to winter, so we'll have to see. Okay, we could do like an armored midsection piece. Maybe reaching down like this. Kind of like rocky plate mail is the general vibe I'm going for here. And I think we're going to have to lengthen out the legs a little bit so they're not quite as stocky. Looking to the future, and again, I kind of just come up with ideas for music as they come to me. I want to do a hip hop type of album at some point. I just haven't quite figured out the style and what I want to do with it yet. I am working on some other things that aren't BGM related as well. In fact, coming up soon, you folks are going to see something that I've been working on. I'm not going to talk about it because it's going to be kind of a surprise. But along that line, I want to do some stuff with music that's not just background stuff, instrumentals, things with vocals. I've had a demo for something that has been sitting in production for a long time, and I just keep getting distracted with everything else. But I need to finish it. I think I've learned enough that I know what I need to do from a mixing perspective. But it is an actual song with vocals, like rap vocals. I do rap stuff every once in a while, usually just kind of fun one-offs here or there. But I've never done a release and put it out as an actual music release before. So I want to do that coming up soon. If you don't know what I'm talking about or want to see what I've done in the past, then there's a couple things on YouTube. A couple years ago, I did kind of like a hype theme song for Whoopsie, and that was fun. And then one of my VTuber peers, who's kind of taking a break for now, Prince Lemon, the only other beatboxing VTuber I know, in fact. I know there's other ones, but that I actually have talked to. He had this sort of challenge thing where he would create a beat and issue it out for people to remix or do something with as kind of like a VTuber challenge. And so I did like a remix of his, and I added some vocals. And that's really fun. I like writing song lyrics. I would like to get more proficient at doing so and then start actually doing things with said lyrics. So that's something I've been working on as well. It's not easy. Alright, let's see if we can define this thing in the middle a little bit. Got to think about a weapon for this character to use. Again, I put a spear in the hand here, just kind of like a placeholder. But it doesn't have to be a spear. We think of like a heavily armored front line, kind of like a hoplite type of unit class. So I'm thinking something that has range instead of like a melee or close range type of thing. I'm adding some texture lines to kind of show the kind of craggy, rocky patterning on the armor. And then just putting off, figuring out how I'm going to do the shield. Could do like a halberd. I think I want to do at least one sort of polearm, bladed polearm for one of the characters. This might be a good one for that. Now, I was thinking about leg armor. I think what I want to do is do kind of like a armored Greaves-ish type of look. Maybe something with pretty prominent shin guards. Again, frontline defense. Gonna need a lot of shielding. The real challenge is going to be kind of getting a weathering effect. We talked a bit on the early concept development about doing kind of like moss, like a moss pattern. So I might do something kind of like real faint lines on kind of like the shoulders and parts where you'd expect to be getting hit with light on the upper side of the armor, kind of like the way moss grows on the sides of trees that gets sunlight, to make it look again like very weathered and very kind of craggy and old, like the armor has stood the test of time, as it were. Oh, I should save. I am notoriously bad at remembering to save my work, and it would be quite tragic if we were to lose progress. Thankfully, Clip Studio is pretty stable, but you never know. Maybe we can jump over to the Monster Hunter Fusion project after this. It has been a considerable amount of time since we worked on that one. I've done nothing on the side for that one since this stuff has taken priority with the release. So maybe we can look at that and then give me an excuse to talk about all the Monster Hunter Wilds news, which is definitely exciting. Kind of like the idea of it's kind of sharp pointed. I don't know what you call this. These edges of the toes on like armored boots. But they kind of stylistically look cool, and function wise, I guess if you kick someone, it would hurt a lot. I don't know if I'm going to keep the eyes up here on the shoulders. They look like googly eyes, and while we are going for kind of like, again, biblically accurate angel, having just googly eyes might make the design look a little silly. I don't know if I'm going to keep those. Because the big thing is like the eye here in the chest plate, kind of Soul Edge, Nightmare from Soul Calibur type. The idea is that the eye would move around, is kind of the primary thing. In addition to the ones on the helmet, these dots here are supposed to be eyes as well, for how this particular character can see. But if we were to think about a pole arm, yeah, we'll get too kind of wacky with it. Now go straight, kind of hilt. The natural order would be more likely to have things that look kind of like sticks or trees and kind of more root-like. This needs to look more metallic, like it was forged. So I'm going to go halberd. Let's see what kind of variations on a bladed polearm like a halberd we can do here. My initial thought was maybe having kind of a more broad blade. It looks like a bardiche. I think that's the name of that weapon. Halberds are more piercing. This is actually more slashing now that I look at it. And this one does have eyes on it. More deliberate with the eyes. And I suppose it could even double as a bludgeoning weapon too. If the user were to flip it around and smack someone with this side, it would be crushing damage, or even piercing crushing damage, like being hit with a mace or a flail. And this side would be slashing or cutting damage. Okay. Now the shield. So the first thing I think we have to kind of figure out from a concept perspective is, how does the shield work? What does it do? Again, the character's arm is roughly about here. I had a couple ideas on how the shield works, and this could be something I purpose for the actual like final version. Hey, Red Dragon is back. Welcome back. You didn't miss much. I've just been rambling, but I have made progress on the sketch. We're doing the shield now. I had this idea of, again, thinking more kind of alien, but still like celestial, angelic in style. What if the shield was like a living symbiotic creature that has said symbiotic relationship with its user? And so in addition to being kind of like a living organism that these warriors or from the faction can use as like a defensive thing, they're actually kind of like attached symbiotically to their user, like a parasite almost. And so my initial idea was having like tendrils. This is just a really kind of rough approximation. Organic tendrils that connect the shield to the user through like arcane energy or some other facet, so that they share energy. Which it would definitely be unique. I can't think of an instance in literature where I've seen something quite like that for a concept. I'm sure someone has done it in like biopunk type of design stuff, but it would be kind of interesting. And so you're getting kind of like things from the back of the shield that are hooked into one of the arms, piercing through the armor. But the question is, what would the front of the shield, the actual face, look like? First, I thought, like, what if we did like a face? But I feel like that's been kind of done to death. You know, kind of like a maw. Seems, again, kind of like a concept that's been used before. Another option I thought would have been kind of like a magical shield. So something that's meant to absorb mystical or arcane energy. So instead of being like an actual face, it might be a bunch of, this is just a rough approximation, a bunch of eyes that, in addition to protecting its physical blows, are capable of absorbing spells or like spell or magical energy. That was another option. And another idea would be more like a runic shield, like a tower shield, that doesn't have necessarily physical features, but is imbued and maybe inscribed with runes that allow it to perform that same function of absorbing or reflecting or whatnot. Red Dragon says back of a head, so it looked like the shield is biting onto the guy. That would be difficult because I think we're looking at the face, because all of these tendrils, kind of like wires, are going into like the back of the head, kind of like you'd see in a mechanical construct. And again, it's kind of rough, sketchy, and hard to see, but the idea that they're kind of hooked and tethered into the user, we'd want the actual business end of the shield to be on the front, because if it was the other way around, protecting yourself with the back of something seems kind of weird. Valiant says, what about doing the eye wrap thing that biblical angels are depicted with? That's a cool idea. I did have that in one of the sketches we were talking about before. I wonder. I got an idea. You gave me a pretty good jumping off point, Valiant. Let's see if we can flesh that out. We don't want it to be really even and organized. It would look like it's really kind of chaotic and but wrapped, kind of like a mummy's bandages almost. But I got an idea on how to work with that. And I would think it might not necessarily be covering the entirety of the face of the shield, but the majority of it. So we'd have kind of like these wrappings that go in different directions like this. Like it's wrapped around a stone slab almost. But kind of building on what Valiant said, the eyes themselves would be kind of like in between, like the bandages are wrapped around and sealing the eyes. So probably want to convey like a layer of depth, so it looks almost like the eyes are peering from beneath the wrappings, again wrapped around. This would be a nightmare to animate because of all the detail, but I like the idea. And the characters themselves aren't going to be animated; they're just going to be static images. So thankfully, that's not an issue. Okay, let's clean up a little bit. And I have an idea on how to kind of build on this concept of the eyes as well to make it look a bit more pronounced. All right, let's go ahead and save this. The heavy shield connected to the actual user with eyes, I think, strong concept. But what we could do is we can have like runic patterns that go around each one. Again, be a nightmare to animate if we had to show this in motion, but we don't. So kind of like, almost like veins leaking out. It would be basically inscribed across the different wraps. I don't want to do runic patterning like all the way on each of the wraps because I'm going to try and do that on another character down the road. Almost looks like eyelashes a little bit. And we can kind of line them in darker outlines a bit and make them look more kind of sunken into the surface and kind of peering between the wraps. Once we get done with this one, I'll show you folks the other concept that I did finish off stream. I think it's less detailed than this one. Put another one over there. And to really kind of hit home the idea that these are gross and otherworldly, we do want to put irises on here. Probably facing in all different directions because that's more unsettling. I'll do like that. And I think it'd be good to kind of texture the wraps. When I color it, they'll have kind of like a pale bandagey color, kind of like ceremonial wraps. And then the actual surface of the shield will probably be really dark slate, like a big slab of rock that has all these things wrapped around it. All right, let's zoom out and take a look. I like that concept. That's kind of something I didn't think about, but it does make sense. And one thing I talked about doing with the different factions is having kind of like a comparable complement to each character. So if one side has a mage type character, then the other side would have kind of a complementary type of caster character, just to bounce off like the back and forth. So I had an idea about a heavy defensive unit for the natural order that would counter or be opposite, like this dude right here, and be kind of like a bone armored character using like a massive creature skull as a shield instead of like a regular tower shield like this one. Okay, let's go ahead and do another save here. I like this one a lot. I think I can tweak a couple things with the details, but the shield is pretty cool. I can probably refine some elements, but I do like the eyes and the wraps. Part of me wants to do like a bunch of alts that have different shields, but if I did that, it would take forever to actually finish a piece. And then the kind of tentacles, the tendrils connecting it to its host. I think that makes for an interesting concept too. In fact, I'm probably gonna nix the googly eyes on the shoulders, and then just maybe add some more of the cables as they were connecting. Another thing I've thought about that I haven't quite decided on is if I'm gonna name these characters, because they won't have nameplates or anything in the actual video. It's just going to be rendered pings showing up on the borders of the screen. But maybe if people really find it interesting, I can do some like behind the scenes or some additional lore about who the characters are. Not just, hey, here's heavy armor guy, here's wizard caster guy, or here's so and so. Let's think about that. But yeah, well, definitely like the way this one turned out. So let me show you folks the one I did. We're gonna call this number 2. I'll show you folks the one I finished off stream. And again, it's not quite as detailed as this one, but it is a character on the opposite side, the natural order, and you are here. Nope, you're down here. Uh-oh. I might have deleted. Oh man, that's really going to be upsetting. This was the pose that I used, kind of like this other one, for that character, but I think when I was dropping all the layers in, I deleted that one. Ah, crap. That one actually did turn out decently well. Alright. Well, I can tell you which character that one was based off of. I'll have to redraw it now. But fortunately, the pose was not too difficult. Man, I'm actively undoing my own work. The character that I used was this one right here in the upper left, the one with the kind of dragon skull and feathers. That was meant to be kind of like a caster mage type of character. Actually, the character more like a mid-range meleeer because they were using a weapon that they kind of manipulated using magical energy, kind of like telekinesis. It was like a short-range bladed weapon. Yeah, I think I deleted it by accident. That's stupid. I don't think I've ever done that. But I can recreate that one relatively easily. We talked about it on stream last time, I think. I'm probably going to go for number 1, number 4, or number 1, number 3, and maybe 4, and then 3 on the bottom. I had some other ideas on another page, but these are the first set that we kind of did in our early sketching brainstorming sessions. So those are the ones I'm going to start with, and I'll need probably a couple more from the other pages. I did a really rough sketch of the kind of mushroom samurai down here, and I'll probably redo that one with a little bit better pose. So technically I do have another one that's almost done. I just don't know where it is. I am going to create a sketch folder in my hierarchy so I don't do that again. And all of my prototype sketches will go here so that I can just pull these out when I need to ink them and color them later. But let me see if I can find that other one for the mushroom character. This one's kind of usable, but I want them to be facing a different direction because they're kind of facing off against each other. So this was a basic concept sketch for like a warrior type in the natural order. But for the actual character pieces I'm going to use in the video, they need to be facing a direction because one side's going to be on the right and the other side's going to be on the left. And they kind of populate the border of the screen. So they're kind of facing off. But I might take this idea and repurpose it for something later. Wow. Here's Mushroom Guy. It's actually not bad. I think I might tweak some of the design details, but in the overall sketch and pose, I could probably just use this one. So I'm going to put this one in the folder since I know I have to do this character too. We'll actually call this 1. I'll have to go back and do that other one over again, which is annoying, but it's all right. I think we'll switch gears. We'll work on something different for the remainder of the stream. First, I got to figure out where I put the project. But we're going to go back to the Fusion one. Very different in style. And I'll explain how it works for folks who might not have seen the Fusion stuff since, again, it's been a while. All right. I think it's this one. For some reason I had 2 folders. Or 2 files. I guess we'll see if this is the one I was actively working on. Yeah, I think it was this one. Let me check the other file and see if there's anything in there that I was working on. I might have just made a copy of it to have a backup. Okay, yeah, it looks the same. I'll just use number 3. All right. So, quick overview on this particular project, which again has been shelved for a few months now. I meant to come back to it sooner, but then Halloween kind of crept up on me. A long time ago, back, I want to say in year one, when I first started doing content, we did a fusion of Monster Hunter creatures. And Monster Hunter is my favorite video game series. I can talk about it forever. And I probably will be yapping a lot during this particular section of the stream. But the idea is to do a triple fusion, as they call it, with 3 different creatures from the Monster Hunter games across all of the entries. And the way it works is we have 3 base components, 3 ingredients for the fusion. We have number 1, number 2, and number 3. And let me see. Let me make sure I'm on the right layer here. Yeah, okay. I kind of adapted the last one we did. So we'll put this right here. There we go. So ingredient number 1, ingredient number 2, and ingredient number 3. The way it works is for a triple fusion, which is something the internet's been doing for a long time. I didn't invent this format. I've just kind of co-opted it from some other better artists that have done it. The idea for the triple fusion is we need to fuse these monsters 2 at a time. And so first off, we have Devil Joe, the well-known angry pickle dinosaur from several of the games, who is a brute type wyvern. In Monster Hunter, everything is a wyvern. It's their kind of taxonomy class. And the brute types tend to be a bit more dinosaur shaped, small forelimbs, long bodies. And the first fusion would be Devil Joe and Agnactor. I guess I'll explain the ingredients here. The third one is Agnactor, which debuted in Monster Hunter Tri, 3rd generation. And Agnactor is a Leviathan, so kind of more long-bodied, almost more serpentine. And a lot of the water-based monsters are Leviathans, but this one is a volcanic Leviathan. Agnactor lives in really high-temperature environments, like volcanoes. It can burrow underground and swim through lava, and has a pretty different body type and overall series of design elements compared to Devil Joe. So the first fusion of these 2 would be over here. I'm just going to put a mark here. The second component is Diablos, a monster that's been in almost every single game in some capacity. Maybe only a couple. It didn't make an appearance. But Diablos is a flying wyvern, and it is known for having its 2 massive horns that it uses to gore people. And it lives in a desert environment and is a big fan of charging things and burrowing under the sand to come up at someone's feet. So if we go clockwise, the next fusion over here is combining Agnactor and Diablos. And then going counterclockwise or clockwise again, the last fusion would be up here, Devil Joe plus Diablos, combining those 2 together. And so the point of the challenge is to draw out a unique creature for each of these 3 fusions, the two components, and then at the very end, in the middle, we're going to fuse the fusions together. So the final one isn't a fusion of 1, 2, and 3. It's a fusion of their fusions. That word's going to lose all meaning. So 1 plus 2, 2 plus 3, and 1 plus 2. All of their fusions are going to get merged together to create something at the end that has design elements of all 3. And that always yields interesting results. So what we were doing last time was getting started with sketching out some basic primaries for how we're going to do all this. And so the first one we did was, and I had this written down, it might be, oh, I have a notepad document, that's what it is. had a notepad document that basically said, okay, here's going to be the monster types for each of the 3 fusions based on their combination. And I believe this one, we got a couple here. This is Devil Joe plus Agnactor. I don't know why the transparency is so low. But we kind of did a real rough pose. This is just prototyping. This is not what the final thing is going to look like. But kind of like a pose of what the monster is going to be doing. And then some of the noteworthy design elements just as a real quick sketch. So this is prototype A, essentially. And so let me go pull up my notepad document so I can be quoting things accurately. First fusion is going to be a brute type. So again, more kind of like a dinosaur, but longer body to incorporate some of the Leviathan elements. Oh, Lord, I got to figure out where I put that document. Give me a sec to track that down. I want to say I stuck that in a completely different folder because I used to be working on it elsewhere. I think I found it. Okay, so we have Agnactor plus Devil Joe. I think I was calling this one Agna Joe. The names are kind of just a mishmash of their components. So this one would be brute type. Diablos plus Devil Joe. I'm calling Devilos. That one, I said flying, I believe. I'm writing it down this time so I don't forget as I'm working on this. And the last one, Diablos plus Agnactor, Diactor would be Leviathan type. And then the final one, which combines the fusions together, would have a single type, but the name is kind of a merging of all those. So it's kind of a long mouthful of a name, but for the fusion of all 3, I said it's going to be called Devactylos. Sounds like the name of a demonic entity, but I don't know what type it's going to be. I'm gonna decide that later. Maybe a Leviathan. I don't know. Or just like a big kaiju-esque brute type wyvern. But to that end, I want to kind of go a little bit back and work on the basic pose primary some more. I'm going to start with the one that I was working on before, the Devil Joe Agnactor fusion, but I want to mess around with the pose a little bit more and the proportions. So I'm going to kind of go back and sketch out from just basic shapes roughly how I anticipate the body to look. And then just like we did for the Lightbane project, we kind of can scale up and then figure out what we're going to do from there. Red Dragon says type could be a chimera. The end result is definitely going to be kind of chimera-esque when combining all the fusion aspects together, but the official type of the monster's got to be accurate to the games. That's one thing that I've always done, whether it's an Elder Dragon or a Flying type Wyvern, whatever I do for these fusions has to be something that is accurate to the games, like would occur in game. There we go, a little bit longer neck. switching gears here, it's good practice, at least for me, since again I don't consider myself a super accomplished adept artist. I'm really more of a concept type person. But switching from kind of more humanoid type characters back to creatures, I've talked a little bit about it here on stream, but my background in design and drawing stuff is actually creatures more so than like humanoids. I think the body might be too short, because if we put the arms up here, we essentially have kind of a T-Rex situation. I think the body needs to be a little bit taller. And we can maybe slim it down a little bit. And as far as like the shape of the feet, I'm gonna do kind of just rough three-toed placeholders here, since that's what Devil Joe has. But we could make them more kind of sharp and hooked, like Agnaktor. Agnaktor has these interesting claws. Like, we look at our references here. Agna has these hooked kind of talons, and they're meant for kind of burrowing through the ground and rock and whatnot. Really neat design. I hope they bring that monster back in Wilds. It hasn't shown up since Generations Ultimate, I think. But it has this kind of long beak, like almost like a what kind of bird that looks like. But it's got this long kind of bony beak, and it shoots these concentrated ray gun beams of, I guess, like heat energy. And when it does that, it'll kind of whip its head around like a sprinkler, spraying everything with deadly fire beams. But the beak makes this kind of clacking noise before it does it. It's very kind of distinct. Very memorable monster. I like Agnaktor. So what we could do is give the claws kind of those same ridges. And we'll go ahead and hide you. Now, in its original components, Devil Joe, for folks who haven't played a game where the Angry Pickle shows up, has like little tiny T-Rex arms. Quite literally, if you look at the concept here, as is typical of the brute types. Oop. Very small forelimbs. Two claws, kind of like a T-Rex. But I guess because Devil Joe's got such a big, heavily muscled body and its core is so strong, if it falls over, it kind of just yoinks its body up using its core muscles, because its arms basically don't do anything. Actually, we'll just hide you. So rather than just copy paste those elements, I think we can bring in some of Agnaktor's to give the fusion a little bit longer forelimbs. And we'll call this sketch 1. Be careful not to delete my work again. So rather than the little tiny useless arms, we'll make them a little more pronounced. Maybe go three fingers, kind of like the toes. So a little bit larger arms, but not so much that they're really developed forelimbs. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to take this base primary and I'm going to layer over it and actually start sketching in some details of like what the fusion's supposed to look like. So to that end, we're going to be actually combining elements and kind of sketching out roughly what it's going to look like. I'll make this really light. But while I'm doing that, like I said before, I could talk about Monster Hunter all day long, and if I have a captive audience like all of you lovely people, I can do that. But a lot of news has been coming out regarding the next title in the Monster Hunter series, Monster Hunter Wilds. And Capcom, who makes Monster Hunter, has been very slowly drip feeding teaser information for the weapons that are going to be in the next Monster Hunter. And they've done that before. I can't remember what they did for Rise. I think they might have done something similar on social media where they had the weapon things pop up and then go on their website. But what they're doing for Wilds, because Gamescom's in like a week, they basically did like 2 weeks before Gamescom where they're going to be demoing the game for the first time, which is pretty exciting. They are dropping on the YouTube channel for Monster Hunter a weapon preview for each of the 14 weapons every day up until the event. So every day at about 1 in the morning Pacific time, when I'm getting ready to go to sleep, a new weapon pops up on the main Monster Hunter channel. And it's been really neat to kind of see what they are showing off and, you know, what's going to be changing, all the new stuff they're adding with the weapons and the gameplay stuff. The second weapon they showed, I believe it was after the Great Sword. Or no, it was the third one. The second one was Heavy Bowgun, I think. One of the first weapons they showed was my favorite, my baby, the Gun Lance. And the Gun Lance looks so awesome. I cannot wait to try the new version of that weapon. There's so much. I'll probably get into it more this weekend because we're going to be streaming Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak again on Sunday. So I'll probably talk about it then a little bit more. But that weapon has so many new things to it. It looks fantastic. All the weapons look really cool in what they've been adding. But as a Gun Lance main, it's really refreshing to see. Valiant said, is it like 14 different weapon classes? Yeah. So in Monster Hunter, you don't have character classes like, you know, warrior, ranged, mage, or whatnot. You just have your hunter. But your move set and the way all of the gameplay is shaped is by the weapon you choose. And right now there's 14 of them. I'm hoping we get new weapons in Wilds. It's been like 3 iterations of the game since they've added anything new, weapon-wise. But each of the weapons plays dramatically different. And every time there's a new game, they always add or tweak things with the weapons that's going to change how they play compared to older titles. And so everything, like I said, they've been showing off has looked really cool, and it's pretty exciting for the game coming up. The weapons they've got left to reveal are dual blades. Today's one was sword and shield. Dual blades is coming. Bow, switch axe, and the one I'm really hoping they do next is one of my favorite weapons after Sunbreak and Rise, lance. I really want to see what they're adding to lance. Lance is so much fun, and it's a weapon I always didn't like in the older games. But Rise made me a fan of the lance. I mained it for all of base Rise on the Switch, and it's one of my most played weapons now. And historically, because I've played it almost all the Monster Hunter games going back to the PSP, and lance was the one weapon I never touched. I just didn't really find it interesting. But they added a lot of kind of streamlined stuff and some neat counter tools, and I'm a sucker for parries and counters. I may have been scaling this up a little bit too much. And so yeah, we'll see. But by the time I stream, this lance will be out. Or by the time I stream Rise this weekend, lance will be out. So I'll be able to kind of talk at length about what I see. It's one of the most underplayed weapons of the 14. So I'm really hoping they don't leave it to last like they did, I think, when Sunbreak came out. That would be, well, it'd be funny, but also kind of sad. I think they should show it off now, especially if they've added some really cool new things for it so that we can all get excited. I see, Red Dragon has dropped 5 hydrates. I've been slowly drinking my smoothie, and now I'm going to have to chug a good portion of it. And a drop a beat. So we'll do that after I get some swigs here. All right, let's pause the BGM and put on headphones. And this time I'm actually prepared. I've been workshopping a mini routine. I don't have a name for it yet, but it's a bit more fleshed out than just a completely improvised beat that I want to kind of continue to refine into something that I could use. Like if anyone ever asks me on the spot, like, hey, I heard you do the funny mouth noises. Show us something. And so you guys are going to be my guinea pigs. This is kind of a hip-hop-ish type beat, but it focuses on layering, something that I'm going to probably talk about next time we have a jam stream, where we talk about beatbox technique. And the whole point is trying to layer things together so you have multiple sounds happening at the same time, which is one of the most challenging aspects of beatboxing. And so this is one I've been tweaking a little bit here and there, and I don't think I'll use it again for just a drop a beat, but you folks will probably hear me try and experiment around with this in the future. So let's give it a try. You folks are the test audience. No one's heard this one yet. Let's see how it goes. All right, let me turn off the headphones. Still kind of working out some of the bugs with that one. The ability to layer the clicks, just to talk a little bit about the technical side, since I don't normally do that whenever I freestyle something. Being able to layer the bass and the clicks is one thing I've been working on, and it's kind of tough because you're making the sound for the bass tones and adding in the tongue clicks at the same time and not trying to muddy the sounds together. So like the trying to layer that sound with the to get a that requires basically humming the bass tone and then doing the tongue clicks at the same time. But when the beat's being put together, you're combining the kicks, sometimes snares, kicks, hats, snares, and everything else, the clicks and the bass tone, and putting it all together is kind of tough. But if you can do it successfully, it sounds like all the sounds are playing at once, and that's one of the more difficult things to do in beatboxing. So eventually I'll come up with a name for that one, and maybe when I feel like it's a bit more perfected, I'll show off version 2. I think next week we'll be doing another jam stream. I've been kind of doing them every other week. We'll see. I think we have Elden Ring collab next Saturday, so that might use up my weekend slot. I will figure that out later. All right. Oh, let me turn the BGM back on. Can't have just dead silence. Okay, so what I'm doing here with the monster design, these little things here aren't antennae, they're fins. If we pull up Agnactor's reference here, it's got these, well, they're actually kind of short now that I look at it, but it's got these things here like this that are like the fins, or the ridges between the webbing, and then it's got this thing, the sail, that goes all along its head, its back, it dips a little bit, and then it flares out more along the tail. Again, the idea, I imagine, is that this helps it cut through like volcanic rock and lava in order to swim around. So for the fusion, I like the idea of having this sort of dorsal fin that runs along the length of the body, which is, again, it'd be a nightmare to animate, but it's a good thing we're not animating anything. And so if we were to put kind of like a rough idea of what that would look like based on the body, it runs kind of the length going this way and would go from kind of the head all the way along the tail like that. And that's sort of the idea. I could have sworn I had another format of this where I could put these kind of on the side so we can look at them both at the same time. Maybe we'll do this. Let me scale these. These are just pings. They're not going to be part of the final till I'm at the very end anyway. Let's just scale these guys down, put them up in the corner so we can look at them. So there's Joe. And I had to kind of cut this out of a, I think it's a concept sheet. This isn't an official render. This is from one of the art books, I believe. Because trying to find a high quality render of Agnactor is surprisingly difficult because it hasn't shown up in a game in a while. But we'll put these two here so we can look at them. Of note, I wanted to kind of build off this idea. Again, Devil Joe does something similar. It's very kind of spiky. It's got all these little spines that run along the body and tail, and along the limbs too, but they're not pronounced like a fin. So the idea is to have the fusion still be spiky in a way, but instead of being little tiny ones, it'd be kind of more pronounced fins like this, so that we can duplicate the sail that Agnactor has. And like showing that's going to be a little bit difficult because I got to orient it in a way that's not going to just look at odds with kind of the patterning, the way the body's running. So I think when we were doing this last time, we were working a bit smaller scale, just coming up with some ideas. This is going to be closer, kind of like we did in the last concept with the character with the shield. This is going to be closer to the proportions for the final, and I'll probably end up scaling it down a little bit. So maybe we can do something like this where the fin is running down here, and it does have that sort of webbing in between to make it more like a sail. But maybe it doesn't run all the way to the tip of the tail, and maybe we have kind of like spikes that go to the end to take more of a page from Devil Joe's book. Something kind of like that. Another thing we talked about when we were first coming up with sort of the rules for how the fusions work, all of these eventually are going to need an element. And by that I mean all of the monsters in Monster Hunter are either a neutral element in the type of damage they do, or they have a specific element, either fire, water, ice, thunder, or dragon. And for our components here, I chose 3 that have different elements, just so that it'd be easier to kind of play around with the fusions. Devil Joe up here is a dragon element monster. Dragon, I know it's not a traditional element, but it's basically like a type of draconic energy. It's red, and it inflicts a debilitating blight called Dragon Blight, which in most games it negates elemental damage on your weapons and drops your crit rate to 0. There's some combination of those negative factors. It's pretty nasty thing to get hit with. Logically, Agnactor down here is a fire element monster, and the other component, Diablos, is neutral. It doesn't have an element. It just inflicts raw damage. And so our fusions are going to be one of those, each of those elements, and then the final fusion of everything all together is going to be one of the 3. Depending on what it ends up looking like, I'll probably decide on its element at the end. And so as a result, I don't know. I think we decided on an element for this one. I just don't remember. I might have to go back and look at the old archive footage when we did this on stream. I think I said dragon. I like the idea of kind of these segmented parts I'm drawing in here, which is definitely a page from Agnakdor's book. The way it's kind of got this sort of shell. But for Devil Joe, when it gets upset, it normally looks like this, where it's pretty much all kind of a dark green, hence it's nicknamed the Pickle. When it gets upset, its body kind of swells up with dragon energy, and all of its scars that it's received through its life kind of glow red, and different parts of its body kind of swell apart. Like these things look almost like seams here. They actually split apart, and you could see like it visibly glowing with energy. And so I kind of like the idea of having the shell like patterning of Agnakdor, but then giving it like the dragon energy glow of Devil Joe. So I'm gonna kind of run with that idea for now, and then we'll just sort of see as we go how it develops. I'm scaling the arms down a little bit. Another thing, I know I thought about this in the initial concepting for this one way back when I first started talking about the ones I was going to put together. And I opted not to do it because it would be kind of a nightmare to draw. But I thought about, instead of having a singular dorsal fin running along the back like this, having two like twin ones run along the sides. So it'd be like, this is a really rough example, but like two big fins that run along that way. And I opted to not do that because, one, it's not really accurate to what the monsters look like, and two, it'd be kind of a nightmare to draw. I was looking a little bit on what to do with the chest plate here. Agnakdor has this kind of lava covered chest piece here. It's not really armor, but when it's covered in lava, it kind of functions that way, and you can break it when you're actually hunting it. You can crack that piece and damage it in order to, one, make it a weak point, and two, to get a certain type of drop. So I kind of thought about, what if we had something similar here, but give it more of like the rough texture of like Joe's armored hide. We could do something like this and give it kind of more of a sharp edge. Because Devil Joe doesn't really have like shelled plating per se. It's not heavily armored, but its hide is meant to be very durable. Like this thing shrugs off damage. So I think we can work with that idea a little bit. Could even give kind of the parts in the back a bit more of like a shell look, so they don't go all the way down the body and they more run along the top. I think that's what I had in one of my concepts for this one way back when I, again, was messing around with the idea of what this thing would look like. I don't know. I have to think about what I want to do for the tail. because we could do something like this where it kind of runs along like that, and because we go for this sharp edge underneath, we have the part underneath where it sort of transitions from like a flesh texture to the spiky texture, and then it just kind of runs along like that. Or we can have more of like a fin thing running along it as well. I'll have to think about that. We don't want to just mishmash the design elements together for the sake of mishmashing the design elements together, because then it'll look just kind of slapped on. We'll worry about the scale on the feet a little bit later. For now, I'm trying to just kind of rough in the details and adding in like the talons, the hooked talons that Agnakdor has. The way behaviorally, I don't think this thing would burrow. I think it'd be too big to kind of burrow, even though Devil Joe does that in some games too, and it actually just burrows in the ground and pops up. But to me, I think this thing would be more at home just kind of wading through intense environments. Again, we talked about it being dragon element, so it wouldn't necessarily be fireproof. But that'll be one thing I'll need to figure out. Kind of an ecology or lore based explanation for how this thing would work. So what we'll do is we'll roughen the last couple sections here, and then we'll get ready to start wrapping up. I do need to go through this entire process with the other two fusions as well. And I'll probably try and do that offline. I mentioned that last time and I just didn't get around to it, but when we get to this project next time, I'll see. I do like the idea of being able to brainstorm the rough sketch stuff here with you folks in chat, since a lot of times you folks suggest things I don't even consider. Case in point, the last concept sketch we did. But we'll see. I don't have an ETA when this project's supposed to be done, but I do want to not take 3 years to complete one sequence of drawings. If you want to see how the last one turned out, it's in the Discord under the art channel. I have it posted kind of up near the top. We did Zinogre, Nargacuga, and Volvidon. That's right, the armadillo. And that was a while ago. That was like 2 years ago plus. And so if you want to see how that process turned out, then that one's in there. This one's going to follow that same format. And I think it'd be cool to have this thing breathing some sort of projectile. This is what we had in the real quick primary that I had on screen when we loaded this one up earlier. So because we're looking at dragon element, this would probably be like a dark crimson type of energy. It tends to crackle like lightning sometimes, but we'd probably do something like that for how things are rendered. All right. So if you look at where we started, this was kind of our general mood for the fusion, what we roughly wanted this thing to be doing. And then we took the design elements from each of the ingredients and fleshed it out into something a bit higher detail, higher scale, closer to what's going to actually be rendered. So I think this is a good start. This isn't quite to the stage where I want to start doing the inking and coloring yet. I think I want to tweak some of the elements a bit more before we get there. But it's definitely closer to a more finished fusion than we had when we started. And so the goal will be to do this same thing with the other two, and then the third or fourth and final mega fusion of all of them, that's going to be a challenge. I think it'll yield some interesting results since we have a lot of really distinct design elements between the three, and trying to put all that from the fusions together, I think is going to yield something interesting. It might be a kind of like Red Dragon was saying earlier, like an unholy chimera of things, but that's sort of the point in these fusions, is to experiment with it and see what you can come up with while still retaining everything that makes the monsters iconic and recognizable, from colors to specific details and whatnot. Like we wouldn't give this one wings because its components don't have wings. The final one of all three might have wings, so that'll be interesting. But we'll go ahead and do a final save here, and I think we'll call that good for today. If I started another one, it'd be another hour before we finished, and I have to go figure out what I'm going to eat for dinner soon. So let me go and take a look and see who's online that we can raid. We can spread the chill vibes to somebody else. Oh, hey, Dirt's live. I Eat Dirt, one of my VTuber peers. What are they playing? Oh, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, huh? We can go see how Dirt's doing. Let me cue this up. And what we'll do is we'll pause the BGM and switch to outro while this loads up. And so thanks again for hanging out today, folks. Again, it's surprisingly productive. Got a whole character sketch done. I deleted one of my previous ones, so maybe break even there. But I do think we will be on our way towards completing something in the future, especially the Halloween stuff. We will be back tomorrow. I have on the schedule the same time for us to go live with the next session of Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. I'm going to try and start early tomorrow. I have an appointment during the day, and if I can get back early, then we might be starting maybe a couple hours early if everything works out. So if you want to come back and see the adventures of Pretty Demon Boy, we'll be picking up where we left off, and then see what happens. So again, hope everyone has a good rest of your evening. Now let's go see how Dirt's doing with the adventures of Kakarot. Catch you folks in the next one.